Galactic slavers rarely drink on the outer rim. It's too dirty, too distant, and worst of all, too human. But tonight, 6 of them slithered into the Rusty Widow, a saloon floating at the edge of neutral space. They pushed through the humming, vapor-locked doors, trailing smoke, stinking of sweat, credits, and blood. They hadn't spilled themselves. The bartender didn't look up at first. He was drawing a glass, like some ancient Earth cliché, lean and polite in his apron, sleeves rolled up past his forearms. A clean man in a dirty place, the kind who kept every bottle label turned the same direction. The kind who never raised his voice. The kind the galaxy mistook for harmless. "Your head, human," growled the first slaver, his voice low and wet like boots in muck. The bartender looked up. His smile was soft, but something behind it wasn't. "I serve anything that bleeds. That includes you." The slaver grinned, his tusks gleaming. "We'll see." They took a table in the back, clawed feet on the furniture, throwing credits like trash. The usual patrons, a scattering of timid traders, a twitchy, silicon-furred Kadari smuggler, 2 drunken thrill women, pretended not to look. The bartender walked over without a data pad, nodded once, and listed off what they'd want before they said a word. 3 Krayag stouts, 1 molten shot, a double-stirred ashtonic for the pretty one in the scarf, and a separate cup for that mouth you keep in your shoulder. The shoulder mouth hissed in surprise. The lead slaver leaned back, arms folding. "You memorize orders or read minds?" "I listen," he said, setting the drinks down. "That's all bartending is, listening." One scoffed. "Figures. Always figured humans were good at whining." The group chuckled. One pounded the table. "You know," said the biggest of them, lifting his shot with one thick, ringed hand. "We picked up 2 of your kind recently. Kids. Small, loud, broke easy." The bartender's hand paused just slightly, hovering over the empty tray. "Kids, you say?" The slaver laughed. "Don't worry, they'll fetch a fine price. Not every day the mines get fresh human stock." The bartender's hand resumed its movement. He smiled again, a little slower this time. "Well," he said gently, "I hope they were polite." One of the aliens leaned in. "Why?" "They're not coming back." The bartender didn't flinch. Instead, he picked up a cracked bottle of house gin and began pouring into a row of chipped glasses, steady as gravity. "You know," the slaver said, "you've got real soft hands for someone on this rock." "Used to be softer," he replied. "Family man once. Wouldn't have believed it." Another slaver snorted. "What happened?" "I stopped having a family." The room quieted a little. He carried the fresh drinks back, placing them with the ease of someone who'd done it 10,000 times. One by one, not a drop spilled. One of the slavers reached to grab his wrist. "Where were they from?" the bartender asked softly. "Huh. The kids. You said you found them near Vega Drift." The slaver squinted. "Yeah, that's the system." He nodded slowly as if chewing that thought. "Boy had curly hair. Girl with a gap in her front teeth. Something like that." The alien shrugged. "Why?" "No reason," the bartender said. Then he turned away and started cleaning the same glass again. Outside, the stars blinked like dying coals in the dark. The saloon emptied gradually, other patrons scuttling out in nervous packs. Everyone could feel it, some shift in the air. The slavers kept drinking, louder, more vulgar. One of them dropped a knife into the bar top and laughed when it stuck. "You ever killed anything, barkeep?" one of them shouted. The bartender didn't look up. "I've made things disappear." That drew another laugh. He moved methodically, cleaning glasses, adjusting the shelves, locking the liquor cabinets without looking. Every gesture had meaning. At 0200 hours, he flipped the open sign to closed. The biggest slaver raised an eyebrow. "Bit early for bedtime, ain't it?" "Tonight's different," the bartender said, walking to the door. "I'm not working tomorrow." After the last lock sealed, he dimmed the lights until the bar was held in candle glow. Then he walked back behind the counter and pulled a bottle from beneath the sink. The glass was scorched black, the label peeled. He hadn't touched it in 5 years. He poured 1 shot, then another, then a third. He carried them back to the slaver table with the grace of a man carrying headstones to absent friends. "Someone die eventually," the lead slaver smirked. One of the others leaned forward. You're not still sore about those kids, are you? The bartender looked up slowly. Do I look sore? No, the alien laughed. You look like you're about to cry. There was a pause, then a smile. Maybe I am, said the bartender. I do that sometimes, usually when I remember who I used to be. Who's that? The man blinked. I was the guy who served drinks while his kids vanished. The guy who waited. The guy who kept the lights on and hoped someone honest would walk through the door. He looked at the 6 of them, one by one. But I think he's dead now. The first slaver noticed it. His communicator didn't light. His locator was jammed. His weapon, usually slung at his thigh, was missing. Where's my gun? The bartender's voice was calm. Melted it. Liquor bath. High heat. Acid. Cleans blood and metal. 2 of the others started standing. A third reached for his comm unit. Nothing. What did you do? The bartender exhaled through his nose, as if disappointed. I gave you a chance to answer one question. His voice dropped. Where are my kids? They stared. The bartender stepped back, removed his apron. Underneath, a black undershirt, tight-fitted with a faded military patch barely visible on the sleeve. He pulled something from under the bar. Small, rusted, shaped like a drinking flask. He clicked it once. It chirped. Suddenly, every holoscreen in the room lit up. One by one, the room was filled with footage, grainy surveillance clips, docking logs, auction previews, faces of children, human children, crying, caged, drugged. His eyes didn't leave the lead slaver's face. You sold them, he said, and you laughed about it. No one laughed now. You're not just a bartender, one of the slavers said, stepping back. I used to be worse, he said. One of the smaller ones lunged. The bartender sidestepped, grabbed a broken chair leg, and cracked it across the creature's jaw. The sound was wet and final. Another reached for a knife. The bartender flung a bottle, glass, and fire. The slaver screamed as flame crawled up his sleeve. He moved fast, faster than he should have. The kind of fast that came from drills, not desperation, not rage, training. The lead slaver stumbled back toward the wall, snarling. You think you're going to stop the trade? The bartender walked toward him, eyes dark. No, I think I'm going to end it. You and what army? A small smile. I'm not alone. The lights flickered again. 6 red dots blinked across each slaver's chest. A moment later, the windows of the saloon turned black. Someone was outside. Someone who didn't knock. In the silence, the bartender picked up his drink, the one he'd poured earlier. He raised it. To my kids, he said. Then he drank and dropped the glass. It shattered like the lie he'd been living. There are things slavers fear. Razor hounds, bounty taxes, planetary embargoes. But history was never one of them. That's why the one called Ferric, whose knuckles still stung from the bartender's trap, decided to follow him outside. He limped into the metallic dusk, with blood crusting in the crooks of his mandibles and violence twitching in his wrist. His brothers lay unconscious in the saloon, or worse. The lights inside still flickered with strange frequencies, human tricks, maybe military. He squinted into the docking field, looking for the man in the apron. He found him sitting cross-legged on an overturned barrel, gazing at the twin moons above, unarmed, calm. Like he just finished folding laundry instead of cracking bones. You're not military, Ferric growled, stepping into the lamplight. The bartender didn't look up. I used to be. You were a damn bartender, Ferric said, pointing a short-bladed plasma spike at his chest. I still am. You'll come quietly, or I'll take another set of your teeth. The bartender sighed, finally meeting his eyes. You know what the problem is with your kind? Oh, do enlighten me. You think time makes you better than the things you've done. It just buries them. And sometimes, when it rains just right, they come up again, roots and all. Ferric hesitated, confused. I'm not interested in riddles, human. I came to collect debt. No, the bartender said, standing slowly. You came because you're scared. Because something inside your chest is rattling. Because the stories you laughed at are starting to smell familiar. Ferric tightened his grip. You ever hear of black pen ants? That's a myth. A ghost protocol. The human tilted his head. Myth, huh? He stepped closer, but his eyes weren't sure anymore. They say Black Panance was a covert human unit during the last Purge War, the bartender murmured. Didn't wear tags, didn't report home. They called them the Whisper Cell because no one who heard them coming ever lived long enough to scream. Shut up, Farrick snapped. They infiltrated entire trade stations, ended regimes without firing a shot. Once smuggled a virus inside a musical greeting card. I said, shut your mouth. Farrick lunged. Plasma spiked forward. But the human caught his arm mid-thrust. It didn't make sense. Humans weren't supposed to be this strong, this fast. But this one didn't shake, didn't sweat. His grip was surgical. Trained. I'm going to ask one more time, he said, twisting the weapon from the hand and tossing it like garbage. Where are my kids? We just ship what we're paid to, Farrick gasped. Clients want human stock. Pale skin. Language abilities, good memory. It sells. And where do they go? I don't know. We don't track it. After Vega, the bartender stared. He believed him. That was the worst part. He let go and Farrick dropped to his knees. You shouldn't have touched them, the bartender whispered. We didn't know they were yours. The bartender looked up at the stars. His voice was softer now. That's the thing, Farrick. They didn't belong to me. Then they belonged to Earth? Farrick asked, confused. I was just their father, but we don't forget. The human tapped his wristband. Suddenly, Farrick's eyes widened. All around them, the air shimmered and cloaked figures appeared, rising like ghosts from the shadows. 5 humans in black recon armor, faces hidden behind breathing masks, boots silent even on steel. Not a word spoken. Whisper Cell, breathless. But that unit disbanded, Farrick said. The bartender turned. We're freelancers now. He walked past the slaver casually, brushing dust from his apron. One of the figures dropped a stun round beside Farrick's face and knocked him out cold. Inside the saloon, the rest of the slavers were restrained, zip-corded, and sedated. They'd wake up with dislocated joints and questions they'd wish they'd never asked. The bartender stood near the bar, watching one of the Whisper operatives pull up the slaver logs. They were working a side channel through Vega Drift, she said. Her voice was calm, clipped. Transports routed through Ilex 5, then passed into the ghoul mining rings. Unlicensed traders, mostly meat, some kids. He nodded. Any confirmation? Yeah, she tapped a hologram. It flickered into view. His daughter, maybe 7, her face bruised, whispering into a grainy camera. They took my brother, too. The bartender swallowed. His hands trembled, but only for a moment. Then they were still. Another agent approached, holding up a cracked slave collar. We found this in the cargo bay. Traces of human DNA. Belongs to a male. Age approximately 10. He took it, felt the weight. The cold metal burned hotter than a blaster wound. You still with us, Tom? The female agent asked. Tom. A name finally spoken. Yeah, he said. I just didn't think I'd have to go back. We don't have to do this your way, she offered. We can hit the next link in the chain. Clean and quiet. Tom shook his head. No, they didn't go quiet. They screamed. I think someone ought to scream back. Later, he sat alone at the bar. No apron, no bottle, just the cracked collar in his hand and silence in the rest of the room. A hologram hovered above the counter. Photos, manifests, auction records, names, prices, alien languages translating into credits. He scrolled through them like reading an obituary. The door slid open. Another agent entered. Quiet. You sure about this? Tom nodded once. You remember what command said when they buried Whisper Cell, she asked. Yeah, he said. They said we were too dangerous to keep on payroll. She sat beside him. You know what else they said? He looked over. They said if we ever came back, it would mean someone forgot to read history. And when someone forgets history, they usually have to learn it again. He finished in blood. She said. Tom exhaled. Let's start teaching. Out in the dark, the Whisper team moved through the docking bay like ghosts. No insignias, no noise, just code words in motion. They planted trackers, triggered surveillance worms, and spread a viral beacon through the slaver ship systems. Each move was exact, measured, designed to start small fires in all the right places. Inside the saloon, Tom adjusted the lights. He let them burn low, same as before. But this time, The flicker had a rhythm, a message. The slavers would wake soon, and when they did, they'd find their comms locked, their accounts drained, and 100 bounty notices with their names on them. Some forged, some real, all deadly. It was the start of something. Not just revenge, but revelation. He tapped the old jukebox in the corner. It hummed. A Grainy Earth song started to play. Crackling off-key, a voice crooning about moonshine and lost children. One of the Whisper agents raised an eyebrow. You always play music before a war. Tom smiled just barely. It helps me remember what we're fighting for. Then came a knock, 3 short taps, 1 long. Another figure entered, different this time. Not armored. A girl, teenager, human, wide-eyed. Tom turned sharply, every muscle wired. She held up a battered ID card. I escaped the mines, she said. He stepped forward slowly. You came from Ilex? She nodded. My name's Kira. I was with your son. His voice cracked. Is he alive? She nodded again. Last I saw, they moved him off-world. Said he was valuable. Tom's jaw clenched. Why? Kira lowered her voice. Because he didn't scream when they tried to break him. He smiled, said his dad would come. And then he laughed. The bar went silent. One of the agents whispered, he's your kid. All right. Tom wiped his face with the back of his sleeve. Then he stood. Prep the ship, he ordered. To Ilex. To every station in the chain. I want the whole ring to feel us coming. Kira stepped forward, hesitant. You really think we can stop them all? He looked down at her tired eyes, but not empty. Kid, he said, we're not just stopping them. We're going to make them regret ever thinking humans were prey. The slavers woke groggy, wrists bound, heads pounding from the sedatives Whisper Cell had pumped through the saloon's air system. One by one, they blinked into consciousness, snarling threats in tongues that cracked and hissed. Across from them, the bartender sat. Not behind the bar this time, but directly in front, chair turned backward, arms draped across it. No apron, just that quiet human face and the faint suggestion of a smirk, like a man who knew how this ended but was in no hurry to get there. Well, he said softly, look who's back. The biggest one, Ferric, tried to stand only to find his legs webbed in cable. He growled, tried to speak, then winced as something sparked at his neck. Whisper Cell Tech. Neural dampeners. Just strong enough to keep him fuzzy. Take your time, Tom said. I imagine reality is a little sharp right now. One of the others cursed in their native tongue. Another spat in his direction. Tom nodded thoughtfully. You know, I've been wondering something. Since you're all awake now, maybe you can help. He stood slowly, hands behind his back, pacing with the calm of a man reviewing wine notes. How many children have you taken? No answer. He looked over his shoulder. No guess? 10. 50? 100? Still silence. See, I was never good at math, he said, but I am good at faces. Especially small ones. Ones that cry when it's dark. Ones that don't understand what they did wrong. He tapped a data pad on the table. It lit up, displaying row after row of file photos. Human children, some smiling, some stunned, each tagged with dates, weights, and destination codes. One of the slavers tried to twist away from the screen. Tom leaned forward, voice a whisper. Don't look away. You earned every pixel. The room thickened. Tension moved through the air like oil over flame. Slow, invisible, but ready to ignite. You think this is justice? Hissed the slaver with the 2 tongues, tying us up, playing judge. No, Tom said. You're not law. I'm not pretending to be. Then what are you? Tom paused. He looked at each of them, measured them not as warriors or aliens, but as rot, as the cancer in the bone. I'm the man you laughed at, he said. The one with the soft hands. The one who made your drinks while you told stories about snapping spines and selling toddlers like fruit. He turned off the data pad. And I'm the one who's going to make sure you never do it again. The eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Tom smiled. That's the problem with you slavers. You think humans bluff. He tapped his wristband again. A soft chime echoed. Behind the bar, a hidden panel slid open. From within, a drone rose, small, quiet, bristling with sensors and heat signatures. It whirled once and hovered. One of the slavers recoiled. Tom's tone changed, colder now. This drone doesn't carry weapons. Not because I'm soft, but because weapons are mercy. And mercy's been off the table since the first time you called a child cargo. The drone spun to the side, casting light on a dusty crate tucked beneath the windows. It opened with a soft hiss. Inside, 6 small vials glowing blue. What is that? The slaver growled. Justice in aerosol form, Tom said. Tailored to each of your species. Just strong enough to paralyze the lungs. Won't kill you. Not at first. Not here. Not on a neutral station, another snapped. Tom stepped closer. He spoke gently, with the cadence of a man telling bedtime stories. This station doesn't exist anymore. Not officially. Communications were severed 3 hours ago. Your accounts are locked. Your escape routes are monitored. And the only way out, he pointed to the back door, is through me. Silence. Then movement. One of the slavers lunged forward, cracking his restraint against the table leg. Tom shifted, one clean pivot, one elbow up, and then the sound of ribs folding inward. The slaver hit the ground, gasping. The others froze. Tom wiped blood from his forearm with a bar towel. I'm not going to kill you, he said. I want you to live long enough to tell the others. Tom's eyes gleamed, the ones watching. With that, the saloon's lights shifted. Every screen flipped. A live broadcast began. One by one, faces appeared, alien, predatory, curious, auctioneers, transporters, syndicate buyers, all of them tuning in. You're broadcasting this, the slaver gasped, to every buyer in the Vega slave network. Tom nodded toward the screen. Consider this a message. The humans aren't coming to trade anymore. We're coming to collect. Outside, the wind had picked up. Dust swept the dock like ghost ash. The Whisper Cell team stood in place, weapons hidden but hearts wired to strike. The girl, Kira, stood beside them. She wore a long cloak now, too big for her frame, sleeves rolled to her elbows. Her hands trembled only slightly. Inside, Tom stepped back from the captives. I've got one question left, he said. Just one. The slavers didn't speak. Where's the shipment that left Islet? You think I'd tell you even if I knew? Tom didn't answer. He didn't threaten. He simply turned his eyes to the window. Outside, across the landing field, a second ship was arriving. Smaller, older, but unmistakably Terran-built. Its nose bore the worn insignia of an Earth-Moon colony. A medical transport long repurposed. That, Tom said quietly, is my answer. The door hissed open, and from the transport came a man in battered armor and a woman with one mechanical leg. Both wore badges. Neither smiled. Friends of yours, one slaver muttered. Tom nodded. Family. He turned to the slaver one last time. You sold my daughter, he said, voice low and shaking. You separated her from her brother. And you laughed when you told me. I didn't know they were yours, Farrick said. They were never mine, Tom replied. They were children. A pause. And so, Tom said, I'm going to teach you what it means to lose something. He turned to his team. Strip the ship. Copy every log. Leak it across the blacknet. Let every syndicate know this crew talked. Mark them as untrustworthy as leakers. Let their own kind hunt them. The slavers erupted in curses, threats, shrieks. Tom didn't flinch. You want to sell something? He asked. Now you've sold yourselves. By night's end, the saloon was empty. The slavers had been locked in their own hold, alive, unharmed, and marked with codes that would ensure bounty hunters would track them for years. Not to kill, but to extract every secret they'd ever whispered. Tom sat alone at the counter again. The stool creaked beneath him. You okay? Kira asked, stepping quietly beside him. He nodded but didn't speak. She touched the data pad gently. You found her, she said. You found proof she was alive. He turned the screen so she could see a grainy video. A girl, gap-toothed, making shadow puppets in the dark, singing. Yeah, Tom whispered, but not both of them. Kira sat beside him, small and solemn. Then we keep going, she said. He nodded. We keep going. The jukebox clicked on behind them. Static hissed. Then an old Earth tune crackled to life. A quiet man draws first, the lyric said, but never draws alone. Tom smiled, just barely. They weren't alone anymore. The stars over the rim shifted as a new vessel blinked into orbit, angular, metallic, bristling with turrets. It wasn't one of theirs. Not Vega line, not slaver-coated. This ship came quiet, came wrong. She saw it first from the edge of the saloon's cracked viewport. "Tom," she said, "we got a ship inbound." Tom was already moving before she finished the sentence. He crossed the room, flicked on a hidden console embedded in the wall, and the external scanners lit up with telemetry. He scanned the signature once, twice. His eyes narrowed. Privateer class, heavy armor, cloaking relays, but the heat sinks. Terran. Kira leaned in. "Terran." Tom tapped the console. "It's ours." The Whisper Cell team gathered fast. No panic, just readiness. Boots hitting ground, weapons checked. The slaver crew, still trapped in their own hold, screamed and thrashed like rats in a drowning bin. But nobody paid them any mind now. Kira watched Tom pull a small medallion from his belt pouch and press it into the console. A moment later, the saloon lights dimmed to black, then flared red. A coded pulse flickered in the air, a color that didn't exist in any alien spectrum. Only humans saw it. Only humans understood what it meant. War. Silent, exact, and personal. The ship outside landed with a hiss. Dust billowed as metal kissed metal, and the ramp extended. Out walked three figures, all human. One was short and broad, a towering slab of armor wrapped around a nuclear core. The other was lean and sharp-eyed, face unreadable behind a cracked visor. But the one in the middle moved like no soldier. He wore a faded jacket, no helmet, and walked with his hands in his pockets like he was late for breakfast. Tom walked out to meet him. They stopped 5 feet apart. "Didn't think you'd call," the man said, smiling faintly. "I never stopped being part of the team," Tom replied. "Didn't mean you'd want us back." Tom looked past him at the other two. "We got a trace. My son's not dead. They moved him off Vega. Next note in the chain is the auction at Dravik's Spire." The other man's smile faded. "You planning a surgical strike?" Tom shook his head. "I'm planning a message." A pause. Then the broad one spoke. "You sure you're ready?" Tom's jaw tensed. "I was ready the second they touched her." Inside the saloon, Kira watched the ship's logs sink into their system. Hundreds of entries, syndicate names, shipping manifests, client receipts. They were all time-stamped within the last cycle. She pulled one up and her hands trembled. One entry was still active. Cargo. Human child, male, 10 standard years, destination Dravik's Spire. Holding code 41B. Buyer. Unconfirmed. High value. She turned as Tom entered. "I found him," he said, looking down at the screen, the number, the name. For the first time since she'd met him, something in his face cracked. Not rage, not sadness, but resolve. The kind that doesn't sleep. The kind that doesn't stop. Outside, Whisper Cell assembled their gear. The new arrivals opened crates, hardware Tom hadn't seen since before the decommission. EM jammers, EMP wands, cloaking rigs, neural mesh armor. It was the kind of gear you didn't use unless you didn't plan to explain it afterward. He strapped the vest over his ribs, checked the injector sleeve at his wrist, loaded a single vial of night poison. A trick for the close work. "Remind me," the lean man asked. "You still hate going loud?" Tom smiled faintly. "I'm not going loud. You're just not going quiet anymore." Exactly. The attack began at sunrise, not on Dravik's Spire, but on every relay leading to it. Whisper Cell deployed drones across 3 systems. They hijacked satellites, rerouted trade lanes, blacked out communication grids. One by one, the slaver ring's outposts started going dark, but only the ones involved in trafficking human cargo. The galaxy noticed. Not all at once, but fast enough. Tom watched the chaos unfold in real time. Syndicates turning on each other. Brokers trying to burn records. False pings flooding the net. But Whisper Cell already had the originals. "We're not just burning them," Kira said, her voice thick. "We're replacing them." Tom nodded. "Replacing them with what?" He gave her a hard look. "Fear." Meanwhile, back in the saloon, the slavers were still screaming, not from pain, but from knowledge. Because every name they'd traded with, every buyer, every handler, Every customs cheat was now flagged with a signal that only the worst of the galaxy could recognize. It meant liability. It meant risk. It meant someone had talked. And in the business of flesh, no one forgave a leak. "You can't do this," one of them sobbed from inside the hold. Tom stood outside the door. "I'm not doing anything," he said. "You are. You're ruining the whole ring. You're starting a war." Tom tilted his head. "No," he said. "I'm answering one." When the final systems lock went into place and the map glowed red across the Vega corridor, the lean man turned to Tom. "It's done. All entry ports are frozen. All exits rerouted. The auction can't happen." Tom nodded. "Then we force a move. They'll panic." "Good." The trap was simple. Broadcast a fake cargo route. High-value human hybrid, rare DNA. Sell the lie that someone had escaped with data that could expose the entire trade network. Then wait. It took 6 minutes for someone from Drakesire to bite. One of their internal ships rerouted, cloaked, heading fast toward a false signal deep inside the asteroid belt. Whisper Cell was already there. Tom watched from the shadows as the slaver's ship decloaked and drifted into the fake zone. The minefield was old pre-war, but still active. He flicked the beacon. One mine, then another. Not explosions, EMP bursts. The ship dropped mid-flight, powerless. Tom was already on board before the crew could reboot the NAV systems. The inside of the ship stank burnt grease, cold meat, synthetic sweat, the kind of stench that doesn't come from machines. Tom moved like breath, silent and final. He passed cells one by one until he stopped. A small boy sat on the floor, wrapped in a thermal blanket. No collar, no cuffs, just silence. His back was to the door. Tom stepped forward. The boy turned and smiled. "Hi, Dad." Tom knelt. They didn't hug right away, just stared. Then the boy threw himself forward, arms around Tom's neck, face buried against the armor. "I told them you'd come," he whispered. "I told them too," Tom replied. "But I don't think they believed me." They returned to the saloon as the galaxy shuddered under the weight of what had been done. Whisper Cell went dark again, slipping into codes and shadows, vanishing like smoke. Kira sat with the boy, teaching him how to reset the saloon systems. He was sharp, quieter than she expected, but his eyes were his father's. Tom stood at the doorway, staring at the stars. "They'll regroup," the lean man said beside him. "Let them. They'll come for you." Tom nodded. "Then I won't be here." "Where will you be?" Tom looked back at the next lie someone thinks they can tell about humanity. A pause. The other man grinned. "You're really never going back, are you?" Tom didn't smile. "No," he said. "But I'm not walking away either." By nightfall, the saloon lights were on again. The counter was clean. No drones, no war. Just a man and the soft rattle of ice in a glass. If someone walked in now, they might think nothing had happened, that the bartender was just a quiet man with soft hands and too many stories. But that was the problem. Too many in the galaxy had mistaken quiet for weakness. And Tom had made a pact once. It wasn't written in blood. It wasn't signed in command briefings or diplomatic forums. It was whispered across a cradle. It said, "You will never be alone. Not while your father breathes, and not while a single slaver walks free." Drake's fire loomed like a dying god, spiked towers, rotating rings, and iron-gray mist curling across its surface. Officially, it was a mining hub. Unofficially, it was the largest illegal auction site in the Vega corridor. Here, things weren't sold. They were disappeared, stolen weapons, archives, children. The boy slept in Tom's lap aboard the ship, curled up without fear, breathing steady. Kira sat across from them, watching quietly. The others were suiting up. Whisper Cell had come as ghosts before. This time, they were the storm. Tom smoothed his son's hair, eyes locked on the approach vector. The HUD blinked red, 10 minutes to drop. Then war. "You sure you want him here for this?" Kira asked softly. "He's already been through worse," Tom said. "Now he gets to see what happens when someone finally answers back." They didn't speak again. Travik's fire security systems were tight. Scanners, jammers, genetic locks. But all of them had one thing in common. They were designed by beings who didn't understand human obsession. They didn't factor in vengeance. The moment Tom's boots hit the metal floor of the central spire, the alarms went off. Not because they were caught, but because Whisper Cell made them go off. Every light turned red. Every screen flashed one message: this auction is over. Panic ignited like wildfire. Sellers scrambled to erase logs. Buyers fled to private hangars. Guards raised weapons, but didn't know where to point them because Tom wasn't the only human in the building anymore. They were everywhere, on catwalks, in vents, behind walls. And in less than 4 minutes, Whisper Cell had locked down the entire spire with a remote code older than most of the species who worked there. No exits, no transmissions, no bribes. Tom walked calmly into the auction hall. A coliseum of profit, elevated platforms lined with alien delegates, each seat built for power. Thermal thrones, gravity cushions, pheromone vents. The central dais was empty now. Panic left it hollow, except for one man, the auctioneer. Tall, thin, teeth like needles. He stood alone, eyes calculating. "You've disrupted a great many arrangements," he said. Tom kept walking. "You'll cause unrest," the auctioneer continued. "Destabilize a corridor that's held peace for 2 decades. Tom stopped 10 feet away. There was no peace here. Just silence. We're not quiet anymore. The auctioneer smiled, slow and cold. "You think this changes anything?" "No," Tom said. "I know it does." Behind him, Whisper Cells stepped into view, black-clad, rifles holstered, masks gleaming under floodlights. The auctioneer's smile faded. Tom reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, clear device. No weapon, just a transmitter. He placed it on the podium. The holograms flared to life. Every face involved in the slave trade. Every buyer, every ship, every route, every transaction, uploaded, shared, burned into the net. "You can't stop it," Tom said. "We've already broadcasted it. You're not secret anymore. You're famous." The auctioneer snarled, stepped back. "You won't make it off this spire." Tom's voice dropped. "I don't plan to." A beat of silence, then movement. The auctioneer lunged. Tom sidestepped. No wasted motion. A knife slipped from his belt, plunged into the auctioneer's side. Not fatal, just disabling. Tom whispered into his ear, "That was for my daughter." Then he pressed a button. The auctioneer's retinal ID was forced into the terminal and the detonator armed. 1 minute outside. The spire flickered. Lights dimmed. Power rerouted. Inside, alarms wailed. Tom turned to his team. "Get them out." "What about you?" Kira asked. He knelt in front of his son, who had just woken up. "You remember the story I used to tell you, Tom," he said. "The one about the quiet man," Tom nodded. "What did he always say?" The boy blinked, sleep still thick in his voice. He said, "Never draw unless it's the last question." Tom smiled. "Exactly." He hugged him tight, then handed him to Kira. "You run, no matter what." She nodded, face tight. The team moved fast, out through the tunnels, into evac shuttles. Whisper Cells scattered like seeds in the wind. Tom stayed behind. The countdown ticked past 30 seconds. Tom stood in the auction hall alone. The auctioneer groaned behind him, blood pooling around his polished boots. Tom looked up at the cameras, still rolling. He spoke directly into them. "To everyone watching who laughed at humans, who thought our kindness meant weakness, who mistook our stories for softness, to all of you who touched what wasn't yours, this is your warning." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a picture. His daughter, smiling. "To all of you who laughed when I asked politely, this is your answer." The final second struck, and the screen went black. A week later, whispers spread across 5 systems. Drake's spire was gone. Not destroyed, not cratered, vanished, no debris, no beacon, just silence, as if the place had been erased from time itself. The only clue was a single image uploaded to the blacknet, grainy, static-filled. A man with soft eyes standing in a ring of fire, holding a picture of a child. The slaver networks collapsed within days, not from force, but from paranoia, from fear, from the knowledge that somewhere out there, someone had a list and wasn't afraid to use it. Trade routes closed. Buyers went into hiding. Whole factions folded overnight because they knew the quiet man had drawn. And he wasn't alone. Back on a dusty edge world, the saloon lights flickered back to life. Kira tended bar now. She still rolled the sleeves, still lined up the bottles. The boy helped when he wasn't reading. Sometimes ship stopped. Sometimes they asked questions. No one ever asked about the bartender. No one ever needed to, because every bounty hunter, every trader, every ex-mare in the corridor had already heard the story. And none of them were brave or foolish enough to ask the last question. Not anymore.